We welcome everyone to hear our broadcast, the teachings of the end time that we're trying to tell you about. Been in this through 6 seals, the 7 seals in Revelation chapter 6, and chapter 8 talks of the 7th seal. Then we find a lot of things about the trumpets and the vials and things in among these last days. Things that's going to happen prior to the Lord coming back. Now, we found out when the Lord comes back, the last teachings we had with you, how that we said every eye shall see him, and everybody will try to go into the rocks of the mountains that are not Christians, of course, to cry for the rocks and the mountain to fall on them to hide them from the face of the Lord. Now, the 7th seal, we begin with it over here in chapter 8 of the book of Revelation. Then we see more events as we put on the board our events of these 7 seals. Now in chapter 8 we will read to you verse 1 of Revelation, chapter 8 verse 1. The 7th seal, which is the last seal, when 7 is a completed number with the Lord, and that number is used a lot in prophecy and in Revelations. So we read from verse 1, and when he had opened the 7th seal, there was silence in heaven about the space of half an hour. And so all of heaven was silent. All the praises and all the other thing, and all the noises and all the different things that was happening was silent. And that was a reason for that. And I think that we'll see that as we read on. Now verse 2, and I saw the 7 angels which stood before God. There's 7 angels, and to them were given 7 trumpets. Now, everything was silent, and then these trumpets will sound, beginning with the first one and go through 7 of them. But they couldn't sound until this silence was ready, and they was prepared to sound. And everything was waiting for their sound, hearing what they was going to bring on through them with their trumpets. That's the way I understand it. And verse 3 also gives us a little admonition here. Also, not only silence before the trumpet sound to bring on whatever they're going to bring to the earth, but verse 3, and another angel came and stood at the altar. And another angel came and stood at the altar. And in our last readings, we read where the souls of them on the altar cried out, when are you going to redeem our blood on the earth? But he said, another angel came and stood at the altar, having a golden censer. And they used a golden censer in the days of Moses, when they'd put incense in it and offer it on a burnt censer, upon the censer unto God. Smoke would go up from that censer. So here he is using that same figure, having a golden censer, this angel does, stood by the altar, and there was given unto him much incense. So here he offers incense, as he did in days of Moses. Incense with a sweet smell of incense unto God in the type and shadow. But now here is incense this angel's got by the altar, and he's going to offer up something. He says, and he offers up, was given unto him much incense, a lot of incense, a lot of it, more than it had in Moses' day of offering. This is offered up a lot of incense. Why? Because there's prayers of saints. And what's this here? That's the silence, and the trumpets get ready to sound, and then this angel comes to the altar, and he starts offering up incense before the trumpets can blow and hurt the earth or hurt anybody. These prayers get to go up to God. And these prayers go up, and God gets to smell them and hear them of the saints before he does anything with the trumpets. before he does any trouble in the earth. And so he gets to hear the prayers of the saints. Now, look at what it says. There's a reason for it. This angel stood at the altar having a golden censer that was given unto him much incense, that he should offer it with the prayers of all saints. Now this angel going to offer a lot of incense with the prayers of all saints. Set it up before God out of the angel's hand. So all this incense, prayers of the saints, go up before God. He smells the incense, all this abundance of incense, and he hears the prayers of the saints before the trumpets sound. And he, whatever these saints are praying, he gets to hear their prayer before he does anything here with these trumpets. And there's a reason. Because he lets the saints pray, and he hears what they have to say before he turns these trumpets loose and before he comes into these other things. And they offer this with much incense up to God. So he smells these last day saints. How do you know who's saints in prayer? Might be some of your prayers. We don't know. Last day saints could be praying. All these things could be coming up. Even in the days of the beast rule they went through and all, coming up before the Lord, before he turns the trumpets loose. All these things that they went through could be happening to them, and they're praying to the Lord about it. And he's getting to hear them. He gets to hear what they're praying. Could be saints in tribulation. Could sound to me more like that. I believe I would gather that in. Anyway, things come to us sometimes, so it amazes me. So anyway, I thank the Lord for it. So anyway, we get some idea that the Lord is going to hear the saints' prayers before he turns the trumpets loose. So and a lot of the incense, the angel offers a lot of incense with those prayers and makes sure that those prayers are smelt of the good smell of the Lord. He smells a good smell from the saints. And they come up before him, and he smells these saints probably that's been in tribulation and things. And they're talking, praying to the Lord. So he hears them. So he's got trouble for people. He got things going to come. So there was silence before all this took place, because he was signifying something. He was signifying the prayers of these saints, signifying the trumpets are going to sound. But he wanted heaven to be silent so God could smell and hear these saints, so nobody could bother with what he was doing and what he was wanting the saints to hear their prayers and things. So all these are meant for a reason. And they were put in here in this book. And so we read them. So there's understanding to be had here. Okay. So we'll read on some more. And we read the the third verse, where the prayers of the saints go up before God, before the throne. Now verse 4 of Revelation chapter 8. And the smoke of the incense. Smoke of the incense. Boys, a lot of smoke going up here. Smoke of the incense which came with the prayers of the saints. Now this incense comes with the prayers of the saints. So it'd be a sweet smell to God. He'll smell this offering up of the incense with the prayers of the saints. So he smells this, as he did in the days of Moses when they would offer up incense on the golden censer. Came with the prayers of the saints, ascended up before God out of the angel's hand. And the angel took the censer that he had the incense in and filled it with fire of the altar. Then he fills his censer that he had the incense in and filled it with fire from the altar. The fire from the altar. And here's where saints have been sacrificed. Souls of saints have been martyred, and their brethren are going to be martyred yet to come. And a lot of these events are still ahead, as I see it. And So he fills the censer, the golden censer, with fire from the altar and casts it into the earth. So now when he puts fire in the censer, the angel throws this fire into the earth from where saints have been martyred. Yeah. And where the prayers have come up. And we do know he heard some of the prayers and some of the seals. They said, Lord, when you go and avenge our blood on the earth? They was talking from out on the altar to him, to God. And he heard them. Give them white robes and tell them to rest a while until their brethren are martyred and killed as they were. So that's all in the seals. Thank God for the seals. So we get understanding from these things. So he said, when he threw this fire from this censer, from the altar, after he'd offered up the incense out of it, he cast it into the earth, this fire from the censer, and there were voices and thunderings. Sound like there's a shaking going on here. And lightnings. And an earthquake. Boy, here comes something here. When he throws this fire into the earth, and there was voices. He heard voices hollering. I wonder what them voices were saying. It could be some of them like we were saying a while ago. Mountains fall on us. There was voices though anyway. Because in the earth, coming out of the earth, and lightnings, and earthquakes, thunderings. Verse 6, and the 7 angels which had the 7 trumpets prepared themselves to sound. Now the 7 prepares themselves to sound. After these events were accomplished, they'll sound after this episode in heaven, what John saw. The angels stood by the altar and offered up the prayers of the saints. And then the fire from the altar was put on the censer and thrown into the earth. And then they heard a lot of voices in the earth, no doubt. Voices and thunderings and lightnings and a great earthquake. All right. Now verse 6. And the 7 angels which had the 7 trumpets. 7 trumpets is a completed number of trumpets to sound. Trumpet always, when it sounded, whether it's in battle or what, it represented something. Either start of battle or ending of battle or a time period or something. And in this instance, it's things happening. Time for these things to happen. And the time period of God to happen. And these angels stood, each one of them with a trumpet, 7 angels, to sound. And after the Lord lets silence be in heaven and these things occur, then he lets these angels sound. Verse 7, the first angel sounded, and there followed. Now, there followed what? Hail and fire mingled with blood. You're talking about a bad time. Talk about a bad time. No wonder he heard the prayers of the saints. And there was silence before these things started happening. Trouble starts happening for the earth. And he said, the first one, when he sounds, hail followed and fire mingled with blood. And they were cast upon the earth. And the third part of trees would burn up. Third part of trees would burn up. And all green grass was burned up. But see, before he does this, he hears these prayers of the saints. And then he lets these episodes start happening. These things was going to happen with each one of these seals. And under this 7th seal is these 7 trumpets. And they are lined up under the 7th seal. And that's the time they come into operation. And there's 7 of them to sound, which is a completed number of trouble. There's going to be a lot of trouble come from these 7. And the last 3 is worse than any of them. There's a woe on them about them 3. But anyway, as we look to these things, and you've read them, some of you in the Bible, great time of trouble. Now, what does it all tell us, Brother James? it tells us these things are going to happen. But why a third part of the trees would burn up and all green grass? Well, the Lord is sparing somebody, something. Something he's leaving there where not all the trees are burned up, but a third part of them. So somebody's down here on the earth that he's leaving something for. And according to my knowledge, there's going to be some people of God down here until Jesus comes back. And there's prayers going up, and there's things that's going to be happening in the earth. And a lot of things are going to happen. Probably it's not written in all the books what all would be happening. I wouldn't have enough books to write it all down in. What all would happen, I would say, in this last time. Verse 8 now, we come to the second trumpet sounding, and each angel had a trumpet. And the second angel sounded, of course, his trumpet. And as it were, a great mountain burning with fire was cast into the sea. And the third part of the sea became blood. So the Lord don't let everything be took away, but the third part of the sea under this second angel sounding, and a great, he said the second angel sounding, as it were, a great mountain burning with fire, cast into the sea. So the sea is going to be, fire is going to come into the sea. Things are going to be killed in the sea. The third part of the sea became blood. So the third part of the sea became blood from God killing things in the sea. So it's going to be sea and the earth, each place is going to have trouble, no matter where people are. It covers heaven and earth. It covers the earth and the sea. Things he's made, where men have been. And he don't let nothing escape. All these things is under the trumpet sounding. And God is letting fire come to the sea. And the third part of the sea became blood. We know in the days of Noah, waters turned to blood. But in his last day, third part of the sea turned to blood. That's a lot of blood. Really a lot of blood. Just a third part of the sea became blood, and the sea's big. So there's a lot of things there, as well as like the blood up the horses' bridles in the Armageddon thing. Things like this is coming. It's coming, and people need to know it. Things are coming to this earth. All right, it goes on to tell you, it identifies some things in the sea. Verse 9. Verse 9 identifies, and the third part of the creatures which were in the sea and had life died. Third part of the creatures that was in the sea and had life died. It identifies this when this fire comes to the sea. And the third part of the ships were destroyed. There were ships down there, whether it be American ships or whose ships, but the third part of all the ships are destroyed. A lot of human lives are going here. A lot of things happen here with this second trumpet. Well, they put in the book. It identifies what they are. Ships is what people sail in, whether it be the United States Navy or Russia or England or anybody else's Navy in the world. Is going to happen. The third part of the ships were destroyed. Now, verse 10. And the third angel sounded his trumpet. He sounds his trumpet. The third one does. And there fell a great star from heaven. A great star fell from heaven, burning as it were a lamp. Now, I don't know what the name of that star is, but it said a great star fell from heaven, burning as it were a lamp. And it fell upon the third part of the rivers Now this star fell upon the third part of the rivers and upon the fountains of waters. Now the sea got it. Now the waters, rivers and waters where people drank and lived, third part of the rivers and upon the fountains of waters. And this star falls out of heaven upon the rivers and waters. I don't know what the star is, whether it be the sun or anything, but the sun falls at the time the Lord comes back. But the constellations are called stars. And this star here reaches to the rivers and the waters. And third part of the rivers and upon the fountains of waters. And the name of the star is called wormwood. I don't know what other name it'd be called other than this wormwood. Wormwood represents a very poisonous water, evidently, and very bitter and very bad to taste. To me, I think God's going to give them bitterness and thank for the blood they shed of saints. And there's going to be a lot of water drinking blood, and the star is called wormwood, and the third part of the waters became wormwood. That's real bitter, I imagine. I didn't look up the word wormwood, but you can. But it sounds like it's going to be a bad type of water to drink in that day, because this is the wrath of God being poured out through the angels blowing the trumpets. At a given time, this happens. And a lot of people say, well, we'll be raptured away before all this. It doesn't say that.
No, it doesn't.
It doesn't tell us that. There's nowhere, Matthew 24, anywhere it says you go away before the Lord comes back. He comes back, and at his coming, he comes back at the last trumpet. And there's only one coming, right? One coming, no more coming, but one. But everything is coming under this. It's going to happen in the earth. Third part of things. Well, some of the saints probably be spared drinking the wormwood. Yeah, they're the only one I could see who would be spared, would be saints. Or Israel, the remnant that comes through in the last days. There's a lot of thoughts come to us on these things. But the name of the star is called wormwood. It falls out of heaven, and it comes down to the earth. And many men died of the waters because they were made bitter. May I tell you, they was really bitter. Many men died because the waters was made bitter. So, where they've martyred the saints and things and killed them, he's given them waters to drink. And this is some of the wrath coming upon the earth. All right, verse 12 of Revelation. And the fourth angel that had the trumpet sounded, and the third part of the sun was smitten. So there's darkness on part of the sun. You talk about these things they have when the sun, kind of the moon passes over from the sun. What kind of days they call that? Eclipse. Well, the third part of the sun. Probably the third part of the day or whatever. I don't know. These things it's just telling us what happens. The third part of the sun was smitten, and the third part of the moon. So the sun, the night, and the day, and the third part of the stars. So as the third part of them was darkened. Third part of the moon, when the moon shines, and the night be darkened. Third part of the sun, that the day will be darkened. The stars, they'll be all darkened. Third part of them. So the third part of them were darkened, reading in that 12th verse. And the day shone not for a third part of it, and the night likewise. So the sun didn't shine for a third part of it, and the night didn't shine for the third part of it. The moon didn't. All this happens under the fourth angel sounding his trumpet. So that's what's happening in the earth at this time. So the Lord is letting things come on the inhabitants of the earth through these trumpets blowing. So the night and the day didn't shine for the third part of them. You know, we think sometime of Israel when they went into the land of Goshen, when the sun shined in Goshen and it didn't shine in Egypt. Now God could do that. And the moon could shine in Goshen, didn't shine in Egypt. Now God could have his people in a place where they're not in darkness. The third part of it, they're not in that part that's darkened. They're in another part. God could have them in another place. I'm saying he could. Now, he don't do things just to be doing it. It's for somebody's sake. That's right. I mean, my mind lets me know somebody is worthy for God not to pour this upon them. And the other part of the earth is not worthy. So that denotes to me God's frame of thinking, his mind of thinking. Now, verse 13 of Revelation chapter 8. And I beheld and heard an angel flying through the midst of heaven. So an angel flies through the midst of heaven, saying with a loud voice, woe, woe, woe. These other three trumpets to sound. Watch out about them. Woe, woe. There's a woe for each one of them. Woe, woe, woe. For the three trumpets. Woe to who? To the inhabitants of the earth. By reason of the other voices of the trumpets of the three voices, the three angels which are yet to sound. There's three others to sound. Woe to the inhabitants of the earth when they start to sound them, when they sound. This has been pretty bad right here with these others sounding. These four sounding, but then these other three sound, it's going to be worse. How's our time? Well, we've got to go. We're gone. Okay.